Hey guys, welcome and thanks for stopping in, watching this video here. So I need to tell you about my story. So my wife and I and our two youngest children set out last August of 2015, and we've been traveling around this RV here for the past year. And this has been an eye-opening experience in so many ways. It's been fantastic. I highly recommend it. But here's the main thing I want to tell you in this video. We have gone and visited a different church every Sunday. I now call myself a professional first-time guest, okay? And we have experienced church in so many different ways, so many different settings, different size churches, small, medium, large, mega church, all over the country, a few different denominations, mostly United Methodist, because that's kind of our tribe, mainline Protestant, type of a church. And what we have learned from this experience is mostly, the big takeaway from this has been that churches, by and large, and I think that now that I've done the research, I think that something like 90 to 95% of all Protestant mainline churches do not know how to properly welcome a first-time guest, okay? So we walk into the church and we walk out and not a single person has found out our name, has had a decent conversation with us, has not done anything to really begin a relationship with us. And I believe that is the most crucial, fundamental thing that has to happen. It's been in those churches where that has happened, where we have felt like, yeah, I would want to come back to this church a second time, okay? When I don't get that, our feeling is that, hey, the sermon might have been great, the worship experience might have been great overall, everything was great, sort of those intangible things, right? Those things that didn't involve me actually having to connect with a human being, those things were good. But when I don't have that human connection, I don't feel like, I have any kind of burning desire to come back to this church. Maybe it's your church, right? And so what I want to help your church understand is how to do this. So there's three main things that I want to be able to teach you. So I've put together this workshop that's got three main components to it. The first one is how to be a welcoming people. Like, how do you actually walk up to someone, put your hand out? What do you say to them? How do you start a conversation? What are you trying to get from that conversation? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to make the other person feel? All those kind of things, okay? And that lesson, if it's possible, if you guys can come to know me and trust me enough, I would love to be able to preach that to your membership on a Sunday morning, like as a message, sermon kind of thing. Because if I can do that, then I can help train as many people in your church as possible on how to do this, okay? Now, you don't have to have every single person in your church trained up and doing this every Sunday, but I think it's important for every person to understand this and to have sort of this framework and this strategy of, hey, we're going to get serious about making disciples. All right, so the first lesson is how to be a welcoming people. The second lesson is how to have a welcoming worship. Now, this lesson and the third lesson I will teach more just to your leadership. So this could be like a Sunday afternoon. Now, these three different lessons can be taught, 3 different consecutive nights if you want to do that, or, I'm pretty flexible on that, right? But if we did it like a Sunday morning and then you could have the leadership meeting the Sunday afternoon, I would teach you these 2 lessons. So the second lesson would be how to create a sense of welcoming worship. So I have a laundry list, 20 plus things that you can do, different ideas we've picked up along our travels, and how to make the worship service itself more welcoming and inviting and sort of comfortable for a first-time guest. And then if you really want to stretch it, have a little stretch goal there is how do you make it comfortable for a unchurched person, right? Because realistically, the way that your church is going to grow, there's 2 things you have to do to grow, I believe. But one thing that you have to do is your members have to invite people to your church worship service, okay? But when they get there, they need to find welcoming people and they need to find a welcoming worship. So I'm going to teach you how to do that, okay? And then the third lesson is, to me, the most important one of all. It's the one that's going to keep this going as a thing that you guys do. So the third lesson is to get focused, church. I want to tell your leadership, listen, if we want to have results in terms of growing our church, which means reaching more people for Jesus, then we've got to get focused on this. Like, if you think you might be focused, ask yourself this question. Do we have in our main administrative meeting for our church, our sort of board meeting, administrative council, whatever you want to call that, do we spend a significant time talking about Okay, last month we had X number of baptisms, X number of new professions of faith, confirmations, whatever those numbers are that show that we are making disciples. How many people join a new small group? Okay, things like that, right? And in that meeting, are you actually focusing on that? Like, okay, what do we have to do this month to try to grow that? And even if your numbers are zero, because I know in my church, a lot of times those numbers are zero, okay? And so maybe it's going to be zero for the next 2 years while you try to figure this out. But I think with the things that I can teach you in this workshop, I can give you some great strategies and then some real hands-on, like here's some actual ideas of things that you can do to implement. To get people, inviting people to your church, to take these people along in a spiritual journey. How do you connect with them? How do you build relationships so that you have the opportunity to then invite them to a small group? And then invite them into some maybe more serious discipleship program, etc. How do you get people to actually make a commitment to follow Christ, right? Maybe you're missing that in your church, and I can give you some ways to do that that are very comfortable, both for you and for the person that you're asking to make this commitment. So all these kind of things. If you put all of these things in context of what does it mean to a first-time guest, or even more so to an unchurched person, I think that you're going to find that this becomes rather easy, that it solves a lot of problems in your church, some of the internal strife and drama that you might be having. If it has nothing to do with a first-time guest or making disciples, then I think that this will give your folks perspective that, you know what, maybe we need to refocus. Forget about those things and refocus on what's really important, what we're really here to do, right? Now, you may be thinking, well, hey, if we focus totally on that, are we going to lose our focus on serving the people in this community? Serving people that need Jesus, that need clothing, food, those kind of things. No. We're not saying there's two different things that a church should be focused on, but they both fall under sort of this category of transforming the world, right? We want to transform people's hearts, but we also want to be transformational in terms of making sure they have proper shelter, making sure that they have food, that they have clothing, they have the basic necessities of life. But listen, we need to make sure that they have a community that they can come and be a part of, right? And so just dealing with the physical issues is not enough. We also need to address the spiritual issues and the communal issues. So we need to bring them into our community. So these are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in this workshop. I would love to work with your church. Just please connect with me in any way that possible. You can email me, send me a Facebook message, fill out the form that's on this page, whatever you need to do. Fill out a comment on this page and I'll get in touch with you. I would just love to work with your church. Let me know how I can help. Okay? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.